Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Top Cyber Pro podcast. I'm founder and CEO Jim West of TopCyberPro.com, and we got a great guest for you today. I met this guy in person at the Hacker Halted slash Global CISO Forum in Atlanta, Georgia, last year, 2024. It was October 30th and 31st. And hey, if you're going to go to any conference in the US, book the 31st, 30th, and 31st. Go to Hacker Halted, go to Global CISO Forum. EC Council puts on a great show with lots of the hacker village. They had a vehicle they were actively hacking and showing you doing it in real time right in front of you, and so many other great booths and lots of information, lots of professionals that attended this event. And one of the great professionals that was there is Mr. Ben Halpert. So I'm going to just let him introduce himself, talk a little bit about himself, maybe some fun facts that you don't know about him if you already heard about him on social media, LinkedIn. But hey, Ben, introduce yourself for everyone.
Well, Jim, thanks so much for having me. Really appreciate the opportunity to be here, chat with you, and share some knowledge with everyone. And hopefully, some of what I share has been gained through experience over 25-ish years in the cybersecurity industry. And hopefully, maybe some of you won't make the same mistakes I did, or maybe some of you will I don't know, make some of the same mistakes I did and still end up doing really well for helping the world and doing good for others. So yeah, thanks for having me.
One of my favorite quotes, I think it was Isaac Newton, and anyone can correct me in the comments below, but I believe Isaac Newton that was attributed to saying, "If I have seen further, it's because I've stood on the shoulders of giants."
Yeah,
And just
exactly.
as he mentioned his 25 plus years of experience, hopefully you could take some of his lessons learned and save yourself the agony and the time of going down the
Yep.
paths of failure that he's reached, and he's giving you a lot of
Yep.
wisdom. And right off the bat, if you don't know anything about Ben Halpert, I'm going to point to something right behind him. You're going to see a series of books there that's on the shelf behind him. And so if you've not heard about his books, that is, they're on behind him. They're available online, available on Amazon. He's been on a lot of news reports and so forth about his work that he does here. So I'm just going to let him talk about this wonderful, wonderful series of books that kind of is its own initiative, is the best word I'd use for it. But Ben, talk about that journey of creating content that has a real purpose for people. It's like the human thing that I love about your story. So could you talk
Yeah.
about that?
Sure. Yeah. So, I was fortunate enough when I graduated college to be hired into the Lockheed Martin Leadership Development Program. And that really afforded me and kind of gave me insight into how businesses run. And so the benefit of that program, and this is for anyone who's kind of in university right now, or even, if you're in high school and thinking about the future, lots of large organizations have these kind of entry level programs that once you graduate, you can apply to. And so what it was a 2-year program where I got to rotate into different business units. So I was in kind of the IT services company within Lockheed Martin. And I got to rotate and do different things. So I spent some time doing system administration, network administration. I did ERP program work for an SAP rollout for one of the Lockheed Martin businesses. And my last rotation in the program was in the information assurance group because it wasn't called cybersecurity back then. And I was there for a week and I said, this is amazing. Like what you work on here is great. Can I
Yeah.
stay here like for a full-time job when I'm done with this program? And they said yes. Oh, and by the way, another benefit of doing a program like this for early kind of in your career is that they paid for me to get a master's degree at the same time while I was at working. So they paid for me to get a master's at Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute in New York, which is a great school, RPI, and I got to work and get experience and get paid at the same time. So it was amazing. So it was kind of that got me into the cybersecurity industry because I literally graduated with an MIS degree, knowing I loved business and I loved technology, but not understanding how I could apply that over a career. So but being part of a large organization is actually really good to start your career. So one of the things large corporations do, especially government contractors, whether they contract for civilian agencies, defense agencies, intelligence services, whatever they're doing, it gives a lot of different opportunities for you to do different things without leaving the same employer. So like your paycheck stays the same, but you get a new job and you can do it for 8 months or 12 months or 2 years. And then but you're still there and you're learning and you're doing and you're contributing. And so Lockheed Martin actually won the contract to federalize the security checkpoints at all the airports after 9/11. And so, they put out a call to everyone at the company and said, "Hey, we need leaders at every airport in the United States and our U.S. territories." And so I raised my hand, and well, first I asked my manager, "Hey, are you okay if I leave and do this for like a year?" And she said, "Yes, absolutely." So I raised my hand, and I got Birmingham International Airport, and that was my airport. And I basically lived in Birmingham for, I guess, about 8 months or so. But one day I was sitting there, and one of the things about this position and why I was so excited about it is because I may also have a private pilot's license, but I got to use physical security. I got to learn more about physical security and how we actually secure spaces in the real world, including airports, of course, and cybersecurity and construction and all of that. And so it was a great learning opportunity. But one day I was actually sitting there at my desk, um, and I was finishing my sandwich at lunch, and I just started thinking as I was staring at an old Yahoo search page, which kind of looks, it doesn't look the same, but it used to look like the Google search page now, which is like literally just Yahoo with the search bar. Now it's just Ad Mania, and it's ridiculous. But that's what it was. So, but I was just sitting there kind of daydreaming, as I was finishing my sandwich, and started to think about everything that I know about because I've been fortunate in my career about like these are the threats that are out there from a physical perspective and from a cyber perspective. But no one in my sphere, no one that I went to college with, no one, in my neighborhood, no one I knew anything about this. They were all doctors or lawyers or in marketing or CPAs, so just different career fields. And so, and then I started thinking about kids, and how what they were being put up, like, against when they were put behind a screen. And so finished my sandwich that day, opened up PowerPoint, and I started creating a presentation right there about the threats that kids face when a parent puts them behind a screen. By the way, this was a time, if you're thinking like 20 odd years ago, this was a time when we had like a big CRT monitor in the kitchen or the family room, and a big tower. There were no phones, didn't exist yet, wasn't invented yet, right?
Laptops were super expensive when they first came out too. So.
Laptops were monsters. No one had them anyway, unless you were corporate, executive traveling. And it was, so what I was talking about at the time was AOL chat rooms, Yahoo chat rooms, and MySpace. So
Mhm.
this is where I started, and so I created this presentation about the threats that kids are up against anytime an adult puts them behind a screen, and what a parent can do or an adult caregiver can do to make sure their kids grow up to be successful, and know what to do in response to these threats.
And
So
even
I
back
started,
then, not to interrupt you, Ben, but you're talking about the times of these and these. We were
yeah,
just on the cusp of CDs at about that time. And a lot of threats were coming through like internet chat rooms and so forth because kids were still getting on
yeah,
those things. So, but continue.
yeah.
Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, and dial-up modems. I mean, right? Things our kids are like, what are you even talking about? What do you mean it took a long time for a picture to load on a page? What does that even mean? Like you can literally go get a cup of coffee? What does that mean? I don't understand. Um, so so yeah, so I just and then so I just started calling up local schools in the Atlanta area because that's where I live and saying, hey, can I come in and talk to your PTA groups? And so I started doing that. Um, at the same time, because I worked for a wonderful organization again, I happened to be in a PhD program, and was spending a lot of time in when I wasn't working, um, in the library researching journals
Mhm.
related to things like cybersecurity and assurance, and the dissertation work that I was working on wasn't related to kids, but I after going to schools and presenting so many years and realizing that at the end of every single parent presentation at a school, literally every single one, at least one parent would come up to me and say, my son, my daughter, they did this online. They shared our home address. They gave out my phone number, significant other's phone number, right? Where they go to school, what time we go to work, like all this personal information. Like, what do I do? And unfortunately, changing your phone number and moving doesn't really help. Um, and so I started thinking about, okay, we have, and at this time, we were, as a society, we were teaching high school kids a little bit about this is what's happening online. And the problem is when you teach a high school child something related to things like ethics, um, it doesn't really work so well because they're at that point of development. Like middle school and high school, the human brain is exploring and learning and testing boundaries and doing all these things the brain has to do before it gets fully formed at like 25 and could be a full functioning adult and contribute to society and all that fun stuff. And so I started, doing research while I was in the library, not working on my dissertation, about how can you train the human brain? How can you train a human so that something becomes ingrained and second nature to them? And so again, I was in these journals because we didn't have online journals at the time, right? So I was doing all this research, and I came about a set of research that basically says if you teach the human brain something before they're 5 years old, it becomes ingrained. Which is why you as an adult and me as an adult, when we get to a crosswalk, we don't say, "Oh, I'm coming up to a crosswalk. What am I supposed to do now?" No, your head just looks left and right. You try not to get hit and you cross, right? That was ingrained. Someone took you the first time you got to a crosswalk by the hand and said, when we get here, we look left and right, make sure no cars are coming, and then we go, right? So,
Yeah. Jordan Peterson actually has a clip out on the internet that says the first 4 years of learning development for your child is the most important. And so you're right on the money with the 5 year mark. So yeah.
yeah, yeah. And so, thinking back, I have kids, and thinking back, like when you leave the hospital as a parent of a newborn, it's like they give you a bag of, sample, formula, and they give you like, this is how you deal with a colicky baby, and they give you some diapers, right? And I've always said, well, they should be giving one of these Savvy Cyber Kids books out in the bag too when you take it, because if you're not teaching your kid as they're starting to grow up and starting to read these books to kids when they're like 2, 3 years old, then we have a problem, and we do have a problem today. We have
Yes.
a tremendous problem. Social media is disastrous for kids. The the millions of people that are out there that are targeting our kids, and I said millions. This is a global problem, a global population problem that they know and they share. How do you groom a child as fast as possible to get them to take their clothes off and do things they would never normally do, right? But because we're not, as a society, teaching our kids, hey, anytime you're on a screen, keep your clothes on. And that sounds so weird, but you literally, as a parent, if you as a parent decide that at age 5, that is when you're going to give your child, say, unfettered access to a tablet, as an example, or they can use it all by themselves. If you're doing that, you hand that child that tablet, you say at 5, you say, whenever you're on this or any other technology, keep your clothes on. It sounds really strange. It feels awkward for a parent to have to say that. But if we don't say that as parents, we get the problems we have today.
Yep.
Because kids don't understand about catfishing and sextortion and all that. They just really don't get it because, again, their brains, right? They're at this stage where, oh, someone has interest in me. That's amazing. No one has interest in me at school. No one has interest in me in the neighborhood, right? So, they're falling for these tricks, unfortunately, and many of them are committing suicide because of it. So social media is absolutely deadly for children. And so if we can get and we can start using these books, which we have them all over the world, by the way, Savvy Cyber Kids books, we have it translated into Spanish, French, German, and Hebrew. And I was fortunate enough to be at Davos a few weeks ago when we were having conversations about getting it translated into Ukrainian and Swiss German and some other languages as well, because a 3-year-old child is a super sweet, innocent mind that we can get this message ingrained in them so they can grow up and we can grow up together with a generation that doesn't have to deal with this. And so that's what we're working towards kind of on a global perspective.
So that is a lot of information for you for the viewer to know that this is an extremely important mission that Ben here is on and has been on for quite some time. And so, again, if this is the first time you're hearing about Ben, you're going to need to check out his bio and start, looking him up on LinkedIn because he's doing tremendous, much needed work for all families around the world. And the fact that he's got to translate multiple languages and it's available in all these other countries, that is just tremendous work that he's doing. And I like to just kind of shine a light. Is there a particular book that, like, when you think about all the collection you have, if a parent out there says, "Well, what is the first book I need to start with?" If they were only going to be able to buy one book of yours, I know this is a tough one because I know you got books that address a lot of different things. But if a parent is going to say, "I got one shot to try one book in your collection," what is that book you would recommend? I know I'm putting you on the spot, so I'm sorry, Ben.
Okay.
But if there's one book
So,
you say, "Hey, one book to rule them all," this is the
so
book
okay.
every parent should get.
So we have a book, and it's behind me, but I also have multiple copies all over my office. It's called Digital Parenting by the Ages. So it's available on Amazon. Um, I put this book together because, oh, by the way, you get a lot of free information at savvycyberkids.org, right? We are a 501c3 nonprofit, and our goal is just to create the educational materials needed to help parents raise kids and educators to help educate our kids in a world full of technology. So that's it. So there's a lot of information there, but the feedback I got early on was, Ben, this is too much. I don't have time to read all of this research and the rationale and the why. Can you please tell me in like 30 seconds what I need to do to make sure my kid's successful?
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, I get it. And by the way, that only happened like more often as we started getting things like social media and, especially TikTok, when every even adult now has like a 15-second attention span.
Yes.
So that's why Savvy Cyber Kids published this. It's called Digital Parenting by the Ages. It is on Amazon.
Could you hold it up a little higher so we can get a good
Yeah, yeah.
shot of that?
So,
Look at that
so
cover there.
yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. And we'll put
So
the link for that book in the description below. But even better, in a moment, I'm going to actually pull up this Savvy Cyber Kids website and just kind of have Ben talk us through some of the different sections of it. But we're going to get to that in a minute. But
yeah.
again, if you're going to get one book, Ben is recommending this one book to rule them all. But he's got books that cover other topics. Could you maybe step us through some of your other books in your collection and library of what
Yeah,
they
yeah.
address?
Absolutely, absolutely. So digital parenting by the ages again is meant to be, you just literally open to the chapter of the age that your child currently is. They're in middle school,
Right
this
to
is
the
what you need
point.
to do. They're in high school, this is what you need to do. They're an infant, this is what you need to do. And yes, there is a chapter on that. So again, super easy to use, super fast to grow with your kids. We also have a book
But
called
before, I'm sorry to interrupt because this is important. It just popped in my head. I'm so sorry,
yeah,
Ben. If
no worries.
you're a parent, expecting parent, or know someone in your family or work colleague that is expecting, think of that. If you're trying to think of what is a gift I can give this new parent, there it is right there. So I'm already helping anyone watching now, a prospective
Yeah,
parent, someone in your family expecting. You're like, what's the gift I can get them? Order this copy of the book. That's going to be something. They're going to get the onesies. They're going to get all these gift
yeah,
certificates and gift cards and all the other typical gifts. But if you want to really make a difference in that child's life that's about to come in this world, get the parents that book. That's a perfect expecting parent gift. So sorry to interrupt you, Ben, but it's
yeah.
man, that is a
Yeah.
great gift for an expecting parent.
Again, if you know people in hospital systems, this book, Digital Parenting by the Ages, should go home with every newborn with the
I
diapers
agree,
and the, so
100%.
if anyone has connections in the hospital systems, let me know. Um, just trying to educate every single child out there.
Love it.
Okay, so everything we create at Savvy Cyber Kids is because there is a gap in the market. And so as an example, right, there's several organizations out there, globally that kind of do this, like K to 12 education, right? Like this is what we do to teach internet safety. Now, a lot of it doesn't work. And that's a topic for a whole nother time.
Yeah.
But so when I go to schools and I talk to educators and I say, and they ask me for things, and I always say, hey, have you seen this organization's curriculum, like what they have? And they say, yeah, and we use it, and we use part of it, but it's missing X, Y, and Z. Or, it doesn't really hit on, or it's designed by adults, like an adult's reading it, not for a kid of this age. And I'm like, yeah, I get that. So everything we've ever created that you'll see on the savvycyberkids.org website is because an educator asked or a parent asked, how do I do this? So we created a book called Parents Guide to Gaming and Esports because 100% of every child on earth games if they have access, right? And what? Wait, is that weird? No, because without technology, kids are creating and imagining games all the time, outside,
Yeah.
inside, right? That's what they do. And so when you give them a screen, they're also gaming. And by the way, almost 100% of adults game too. Like everyone has an app on their phone, at least, like when they're bored and they want to play a quick little game. So we created this guy because there is more money now in esports and
Yes.
gaming than there is in
Tremendous.
all other professional sports combined. And so,
Yeah.
children
Ben,
could now,
it was like I remember as a kid with the Nintendo and the Sega
yeah,
and PlayStation, playing the console games, and even before then, the arcades, right? Then you went into console gaming, PC gaming, and I will always remember being a participant, meaning a player playing the game. And then
yeah,
fast forward to what, a decade ago, this whole idea of watching gamers play became a craze. The live streaming of people's so now people became spectators, and then the next thing it became a competitive sport where you have all these gaming championships. So yeah, you're absolutely right. The explosion of video games as an industry with multifacets of just the games themselves, consoles, as well as competitions, and then streaming markets. Twitch. Look at Twitch and how much revenue that company generates off of children watching and even adults watching other people play games. It's
yeah,
a tremendous explosion there. So yeah, you're definitely
yeah.
on to something. So
And
do
so,
you
so we created
go
this
ahead?
guide because parents are always telling me, I don't understand why my child games so much, and so the rationale really is why do people game is because it makes them feel good. They get positive feedback, their brains get happy, so they want to do it again and they want to play again and they want to achieve and they want to make the next level, right? So that's why humans play games because it's fun. Um, and so I put this together as a guide to help parents not like say, okay, that's enough screen time, that's enough gaming, because yes, you do have to limit that, so kids can do other things in life, of course. But if you can guide a child the right way, maybe they're going to be on an esports team when they're in high school. Maybe they're going to get a college scholarship to go to
Awesome.
college on a scholarship, which now exists on esports. But that doesn't happen by letting your child game unlimited. It happens by creating the whole person. And like these actual esport teams, they have psychiatrists and they have physical therapists and they have all occupational therapists that help because it's in your body that is like literally gaming, right? So just like you have all these resources for physical sport teams, you have that too here. And so if you just let your kid game all the time, it's not going to work. Right.
Yeah.
That's not going to help them be successful. So this has guides and it talks to them. And we have chapters on, careers in gaming. So if your child loves gaming, but they're really not that good at it, there are so many other careers now that surround the field that they can literally have a career in gaming when they
Wow.
graduate. And so it's to educate parents about what's really happening and how you can guide your child, no matter how old they are, to be successful gamers and to do it safely as well. So that is another book that we have. And then, of course, we have the core of Savvy Cyber Kids, which is why I actually founded the 501c3 back in 2007. And that core is the children's book series, which is meant for parents to start reading to their kids at 3 years old. And for those of you that have children or had children or now grandchildren, we say that the right age to introduce your children or grandchildren or nieces or nephews to the Savvy Cyber Kids is when your kids or the kids in your life stop eating books. And only people that have had kids understand what that means. But kids literally eat books until about 2.5 or 3 years old. And so once they're done with that, literally that's when their brain is ready to kind of learn along with the Savvy Cyber Kids and bring them into their lives. And so that's the book series that we have.
So Ben, do you mind if I make you host? Can you pull up your Savvy Kid site, maybe step us through? I mean, I could do it, but you'll be guiding me, and I know you know your site like the back of your hand. So what I'm going to do, I like to kind of show some of the things that are on your site. So folks that are, I know people are going to pull up. We're going to have the link in the description below. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to set Ben as the host, and then let him kind of pull up the Savvy Cyber Kid site and kind of walk us through some of the content, the resources, and the different just information he has that, and he has a lot of free information too. So I'm gonna just prep you right now. The books are great. You can get them on Amazon, but he also has a lot of free resources. So if you're a parent, or have children in your life, whether they're your own children or family members, etc., and or neighbors, share this information with everyone in your life because if it doesn't apply to you, maybe it applies to another family member, a neighbor, someone at your school. If you're a teacher, by my goodness, this is just life-changing stuff, and it's not just from the safety thing, because we can scare people like, oh, the dangers of the internet, and that's real. That's really real. But there's also, as a parent, the struggle of like what you just mentioned about your kids are going to want to play, play, play because of the gamification of that endorphin release that they get from achievements and making coins or whatever the game is trying to gamify to them to keep their eyeballs and hands working the video game, right? That's what the companies and businesses are doing, and so it's a struggle for parents to try to limit that screen time. We've seen countless YouTube videos. I know folks out there have laughed at them at times, or they might have been part of that video and being on the internet of their kids having complete meltdowns when their phone's taken from them or the internet router is turned off. So that's the things all parents have to deal with, or if you haven't dealt with it yet, you will during your teen your child's development. But anyhow, Ben, can you step us through all the wonderful resources there? He's got his site up here. So everyone, this link is in the description below, but it is savvycyberkids.org. Ben, take us for a test drive.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity for letting me share impromptu about Savvy Cyber Kids resources that we have. So when you come to the Savvy Cyber Kids site, there was really kind of two sides to the site. There's one if you're an educator and you want to use our lesson plans and activity sheets and stuff like that in your classroom. And the other side is for parents or
Love it.
grandparents. So, so we talked about a lot of things. One of the things we didn't talk about is we have a grandparent's guide to technology that's free to download here as well. And why? Because you as a grandparent are going to have to take care of the grandkids. Like if you like, maybe it's a night, maybe it's a day, maybe it's a week if you're that kind to your children to let them take a vacation. But you've got to figure out, how do you use technology? How do you use it and communicate with the grandkids? And then how do you manage that technology with your grandkids to help them be successful? And then actually half of that guide talks about the scams that target the older generation and what you could do about that. So
Yes.
that's a free download as well that you see on our
That
site.
is awesome, Ben. I mean, kudos to you and your team for bringing this to the world. Man, that is just you're a tremendous human being. Let me just start right there. Ben
Well,
Halpert and his team are all tremendous for providing all these free resources, educational resources. So please share this out. Friends, family, work colleagues, this is something everyone needs to know more about, even if it's just for the free downloads and the free resources. Wow, you're tremendous, Ben. So continue. I'm sorry to keep
well,
interrupting, but
yeah,
man,
yeah, no, no problem.
it just fills me up with such joy to know that there's great people like you putting this out into the world to help other people. So thank you for all of this work you've done.
I appreciate that. And by the way, if I can give a shout out to our sponsors, I literally can't do any of this without financial support. And so that's why we created the 501c3 nonprofit Savvy Cyber Kids, because it costs money to make these
It
materials.
does.
Even the free downloads cost money,
Cost money,
right?
time, yeah, and
So,
energy.
so yes, if your organization would be interested in sponsoring us and help us create new materials and reach more of today's youth, we'd love to have you on board as a sponsor. So if you go under the family section, so we actually created a link here, and we did this just for kids. And so our books, yes, you can buy our children's books on Amazon, softcover, hardcover, but we actually put them up here for free. So we have our children's book series. They're up here for free in flip book format. And we did that because we're talking to educators in different schools and going and doing sessions at schools. And by the way, we also have a volunteer program where we get adults like you watching this, going to the local elementary school across the street to the kindergarten classroom where you live, and reading. And by the way,
We're
we'll
in a
give you a
story
book.
time. Yeah.
We'll give you a book to donate. We'll ship it to you to leave behind at the school so we can continue to educate kids once you leave. So if you're interested in
Man,
volunteering for
amazing.
us in
Amazing.
your community. So, but we actually created these because we have a lot of underprivileged schools where they
Yes.
can't afford books and things
Economically
like that.
disadvantaged areas. And yeah, this is just
Yeah.
wonderful that you're doing this.
And so, but they all have a federally funded projector that's at the front of the room. And so they can put the book up on the front and they can leverage this. And again, our lesson plans are here to download You can see here it says lesson plan, free lesson plan activity sheets to download for each of the books. Um,
And what I
and so
love
we,
about it, I mean, I don't mean to keep interrupting you, Ben, but if you scroll
that's
down a
fine.
bit, look at these. These are high quality graphics. They're inviting, fun, engaging. I mean, this is just top tier, graphic work, design, and illustration work here at play. I just got to say, kudos to the high quality work here.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate that. So I wrote the words. The books rhyme because I'm a huge Dr. Seuss fan. Well, growing up, I was as a kid. And of course, he has adult books too. But
Hmm.
our books rhyme, and it resonates with kids. And by the way, our translated versions also rhyme: German, French. So
Wow.
because kids are kids, right? And they want, like,
Yeah.
we need to entertain the kids and keep them involved and listening so that they will participate in what we're trying to teach them without telling them they're being taught something, of course. So I had an amazing illustrator that I work with. His name's Taylor Sutherland. He helps me and will continue to help me, hopefully, on our additional books that are coming out as well. So these are our children's books. We have a technology pledge here on our website too. So there's a lot of kind of free downloads where you can download a contract that you can do with your family.
Okay.
We don't actually think those work so well. So what we did is we created an interactive guide where you can actually go through with your kids and sit down and say, hey, you know what? We kind of want to have a technology rule or two in our house, but let's pick one or two to start with. And so you just kind of click the box as a parent, like my parents will always know my passwords. And you can maybe this one, I will not create other social media profiles my parents don't know about. And you simply put in your email address at the top, click the captcha, of course, and click submit. I have no idea who uses this or how often this one is used. So it's literally a pass through for the email. I don't capture anything here. But this way, you can come back again with your kids and you can recreate and say, okay, well, we did this, but now we want to add another one. So let's pick another one to add together so we have a rule in the house. And maybe one of them can be no using technology during mealtime. And that
And you have
same
a
rule goes
custom
for
box
parents
for
too.
anything that you haven't covered, and there's a custom
Exactly.
family rule box right there. You type your
Yeah.
own. Hmm.
Yeah, and you just get an email with the short list. You can print it out, cut it out, put it on the refrigerator or wherever in your house. So we kind of created that for parents as well. Um, we do have one of our lesson plans here online, not as a download. It's called the Digital Bill of Rights. So this one's actually been used over 250,000 times. This one we actually have a page counter on. Um, but this I created so that as an educator, I mean, parents can use this too at home. And by the way, if you're homeschooling, you should absolutely use this. But when you're teaching kids about the United States Constitution and the Bill of Rights, this is when you bring this concept in of the digital Bill of Rights. Because if you think about what the framers of the Constitution and the Bill of Rights were doing, they were setting out that they didn't like how they were being treated by the king in England, right? So they said, this is how we want to be treated, and this is how we want to be governed. And so this is the digital version of that, so that can help guide your kids that this is how I want to be treated, and this is how I will treat you online. And so this is a lesson plan that we do. And that you can do with your kids as well. So again, this one is the only one we have a counter on, so we know how many times this lesson plan has been used. So our other kind of lesson plans can be found under free educational resources. You just submit, again, under sign up, and you'll get a link to all of our downloads. We have a section called Tech Talk, because when you hand your child a device, you're not only parenting your child anymore, you're parenting your child and that device for the rest of their lives. It becomes an appendage, unfortunately, because of the technology and how it's designed to be addictive. And it's your job as a parent or a grandparent or an educator to help figure out when it's appropriate to use that new appendage and when it's not. And so we have a blog. We post 2 to 3 blogs per month that are here, and all different topics related to what's happening in the world today. So these are just the 3 that we posted
In January.
January. You'll see we also have under the blog, we have something called a cyber ethics news feed, and you can sign up for this. So the blog email goes out once a month.
Okay.
The cyber ethics news feed goes out once a week. And so what we do is we capture headlines across the world about when technology is used for good and when technology is used for not good things. But these are meant to be used as conversation starters with your kids so that you know what's going on in the world. And when they're like, oh, that would never happen to me. Oh, yeah? Let me show you something.
Yeah.
This was last week, right? So that's why we do this. But again, it's to show both the good and the not so good that can be had with technology in a way to talk to your
Yeah, could
kids.
you go back to the blog for a second? I wanted to kind of hone in on
Yeah,
something. I think you had there was there was a lot of good content there. One of them on the side here, if you scroll down a bit, I like the one we're talking about. A lot of parents that what every day, every month there's a new app, there's a new thing that the kids are into, and one
yeah,
of the things that my own daughters were into was Snapchat. It was all these Snapchat groups and so forth. So I saw
yeah,
that you have the snapping safety, the fun and risk of Snapchat. I mean, again. Great
yeah.
content, and I love that you're posting 3 times a month. So you guys are always going to be on top of the technology, the new
Yeah.
messaging apps, the new social platforms. You mentioned TikTok earlier as well. So again, for anyone out there with children in your lives, they're covering a lot of bases here, and then you just look at all these great topics here. So man, this is
And
tremendous work.
well, thank you. And by the way, this was written by a high school student. This was donated. This is a blog donated by Aditya here. And so we get, if you have a middle schooler or a high schooler, or maybe even early upper elementary school, if you have a child that uses technology and wants to talk about how they use technology, how it impacts their generation, we are happy to turn them into published authors. So,
Wow. You're becoming an opportunity to get an article published on this site that is seen by
yeah,
millions of people around the world. Wow, what an
yeah.
opportunity.
Yeah. So we're excited to be able to do that for kids. And there are definitely, so we hear a lot of the bad, right? But we also need to bring in the good, right? So how technology is being used, and we'd love to get a kid's the children's views on what's happening with them and their peers. So we have that on our site as well. And then we have featured conversation starters, and we share these on social media most of the time, weekly or biweekly or so. But these are places where we take one of those articles from that feed that I showed you, and we kind of pull out. We give you a little summary. We give you an image to talk about, and this could be used with your kids. And we kind of give you a conversation starter question to use with kids. So again, as a parent, you can use this as you decide. And then as an educator, you can use it to do like small group discussions or things like that. So we're always trying to find ways that we can help you engage as a parent with children in tech, or as an educator with children in tech, because we're trying to change a generation.
Wonderful. And can you maybe show us like a collection? I know we're trying to keep on our scheduled time, but
Oh,
is
yeah,
there a section aside where we could quickly kind of scroll through the various books that you have? I see you have a shop
sure.
button here. So you got books
Yeah,
for children, books for adults. I love it. Let's start with the children first. And look at this.
yeah.
We got a,
So
Mhm.
so this is our children's book collection. So we actually just this year we actually published a 3-book collection to make it cheaper for parents to buy. So we use print on demand, and it's expensive because of the way we're doing it, because we don't have money to kind of buy so many and hold the inventory. So each one of these books alone, print on demand, is about $25. But when we created this 3-book anthology, it's 25 for all three. So you could go
Man,
to Amazon, buy this book, and get all three are in this book, and you can see it
wow.
behind me. So
Wow.
we did that. So we're always trying to, make it affordable for parents. These are our books. So as I mentioned, we have the first book in the Savvy Cyber Kids series
French,
translated into multiple
German,
languages.
yeah.
So here's French and German and Spanish and Hebrew, and we have
Amazing.
other languages. By the way, we get the translated versions by someone who's willing to donate their time to translate
Oh,
for
wow.
us. So
Wow.
if you speak another language, we would love for you to, if you're interested in donating your time to translate a children's book. Again, not too many words. We do have one requirement though, that rhymes in the
Right.
native
Okay.
language.
Can we check
And
out
then
the ones for adults?
yeah, so books for adults. So we actually published this year Mothers Against Cybercrime by Allie Hunter. She's on our advisory board. And so this one, Allie and I actually also presented at Hacker Halted about this book, and some amazing work that she's doing in the community. So she actually created a book of 20 different stories based on 20 things that really happen to families.
Mm.
And then there's tips on what you can do to prevent this from happening in your family, as well as what you can do in your community as well. As I mentioned, we have digital parenting by the ages. That's the 30-second guide. Like, what do I need to do right now for my
Right
child
now.
at any.
That's the emergency break glass when needed book right
You
there.
got it. You got it. Parents Guide to Gaming and Esports. Like I mentioned, we kind of talk about all the different aspects of the industry here and what a parent needs to know to help raise their kids to be smart,
And
successful
great
gamers.
titles on these chapters, by the way. Right to the point. Yep.
Yeah. And then again, we have our Grandparents Guide to Technology, and we have a downloadable version of the Parents Guide to Technology. This is the older version that was too long that parents complained about, which is why we created the short book. But then we also have that in Spanish as well.
Wonderful.
We've created that. So yeah, so thanks for letting me show
And the
some parts of
last
the site.
thing, though,
Really
you did
appreciate it.
mention
Yeah.
if there's any young writers out there that want to be published on a great site like this, if we go right back, I just wanted to say there's I think under the About section, there's a contact form. So if you want to volunteer your time to help contribute content, have a young writer, go to that About section, fill out the contact request. Ben's a very easy person to get a hold of. So if you want to find him on social or LinkedIn, but
Yep.
that's tremendous work him and his team is doing with his nonprofit. And again, man, making it available online for free, man, and all this other wonderful content resource. Man, you're an angel. I'm just going to say you're an angel of a human
Thank you.
being,
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
providing this light and guidance for parents all around the world in multiple languages. I mean, you could have just stopped at one or two books and called it a day, but you're tirelessly working to help
I'm
children
just
stay
getting
safe
started.
online.
We're just getting started at
And you're
Savvy
just
Cyber.
getting started. Man,
Yeah.
wow, I love your energy, man. That's why I'm
Yeah.
so glad that you agreed to be a guest and give me some of your time. And I know I want to respect your time. I do want to talk about you have a huge professional career besides being an author of this wonderful content, which we could talk another hour about just the books and everything you're doing on education for cyber. But you're also a level 99 CISO, you're an expert security advisor as well. So let's just kind of talk about that part of your life and career just a little bit. So can you tell us a little bit the
Sure.
work you do in the industry besides the books?
Yeah. So, like I mentioned, I started my career at Lockheed Martin, kind of worked my way up to different, levels of responsibility in different industries. Was the chief information security officer, chief security officer at multiple companies. And then I decided to become my own boss. And so I created CISO Horizon, which basically provides advisory services for larger firms, advisory services for small firms as well. But then we also do managed security services for small firms. And when I say small firms, we do it for solopreneurs. And the reason why solopreneurs from startups to SMBs, up until where you would have a full-time security team, that we service the lower end of that. And the reason why we do that is because of the threats that are out there that all of us all of us are now impacted by. It doesn't matter if you're one person starting a business, you're 10 people at a startup, you're 100 people, you're 800 people. It doesn't matter. You're up against the same threats that a Fortune 10 company is up against. And you need the same type of cybersecurity services. And so that's what we do. So we scaled it back, and I've worked in startups before, and the largest of large enterprises and government agencies. And so we've actually created a system where it's affordable to get what you need to actually survive and thrive in this world as a business. So that's the day job business, the for-profit business, and then the nonprofit business of Savvy Cyber
But
Game. So
even
it's
then,
always
as
been
you
there
describe
throughout my
your
career.
for-profit business, you're helping solopreneurs, small to medium-sized businesses, which are largely forgotten when the conversations of cybersecurity
Yeah.
programs and frameworks. Because a small business or solopreneur, if they like try looking around and say, "Oh, I heard about risk management framework. Well, it works for DoD or federal. It should work for me." And then they're in an ocean that they're just lost.
Yeah.
Having
Yeah.
someone that your business is literally a lighthouse to these businesses that are startups and just on shoestring budgets. And again, you're
Yep.
giving them your time and energy and your wealth of expertise that you're bringing to them, even if it's a fractional or virtual, CISO, you are just still tremendous, even in your for-profit side of your career, man. Ben. So again, man, thank you for helping out just so many people that are largely forgotten when it comes to the big businesses of cyber. So could you maybe just, again, just give us a real quick, like, what is, and that's a question I like to ask leaders, but when you're doing some of the work like this, what are some of like if I'm a solopreneur, small business person and watching this right now says, okay, now I'm listening. It was cool to talk about the children stuff, but I don't have a kid yet because I'm early 20s, mid 20s or early 30s, and I'm starting a
Yeah.
business. What is some real short, simple advice of where to, kind of what's step one? If I'm starting a business, give me like the three things I need to put in my radar when I'm launching my business as far as early risk from your
Okay.
experience and perspective.
I'm just going to tell you three things that you need to do right away. One, never reuse a password again in your life. Sorry, it's easy. Get a password
There's too
manager.
many
There's plenty of
password
good
dumps
ones
out
out there.
there.
You know what? You're on an iPhone. At least use the password manager in there. You're on an Android. Use it there. You want to do something more than that? Contact me, and I can help you with that. So that's first. Never reuse a password again.
Okay.
Every compromised account, reuse passwords.
Yep.
The biggest data breaches we hear about every single day, reused passwords. Second thing you can do right now for yourself, if you can, on every single account, turn on the ability to get a text of a PIN or an email of a PIN. It's called in the industry, it's called two-factor authentication, multi-factor authentication. It doesn't mean anything to anybody outside the industry,
Yeah.
but what it means is it provides this little extra layer of protection so that if someone does steal your password in the future, even though you're not reusing it anymore, they still can't get into your account and you still won't be breached as a company. So
Wonderful.
that's two.
So two is two factor. I love it. So
Yeah,
one, don't
two is two
reuse your
factor.
password, the one password over and over for one. I love
Yeah,
how the theme is lining up here. And two for two
yeah.
factor and three.
Three, unfortunately, everything we use in this world today is flawed, whether it's software or hardware, right? The hardware of the phone in your hand, the hardware of the laptop you're watching this on, or the tablet, the software, right? So it's all designed by humans. And when it's not designed by humans, it's designed by something related to AI that was designed by humans, so is flawed as well.
Yeah.
So sorry, AI won't help us here, but everything has vulnerabilities in it. We just don't know about them yet. So on every device that you use, set up patching to auto update. Every time there's a new operating system coming out, let it auto update in the background. Every time you get the pop up on your phone that there is a new update, please just go ahead, take a deep breath. You were interrupted, your brain's not so happy. Take a deep breath, allow your device to update. Whenever you get those updates, it means someone can take over fully your device, control the camera, pull the data off, take your pictures, turn your camera on and off, turn that wonderful, I don't know, Amazon Alexa device remotely on with the camera that's in your bedroom while you're changing or your kids are changing. Literally turn
Privacy.
on auto
Yeah.
updates on every piece of technology in your life. I could keep going, but I'm stopping at three.
Yeah. Well, that right there, for any business person out there running your own as a sole proprietor to, small business, medium business, that's three powerful tips right there that if you just do those three at the start, you're leaps and bounds ahead of a lot of your competitors who will end up being owned or having their data breached, stolen, or even ransomware and shut down because if we don't have data, don't have our systems, we're dead in the water. So, man, thank you for sharing those three tips. I want to kind of take a moment. This is where I like to take a break from the tech talk and discussions and have what I call my moment of levity, where I like to ask you just some rapid fire questions, and there's no right or wrong answer, but this is all for fun. And so, if you're willing to, put up with this for a moment, I'll start hitting you with some questions. All right.
I'll do my best.
All right. First one out the gate. This is going to split the room. Star Wars or Star Trek?
Both? I can't say that, can I?
You can. It could be both.
Okay, I go
Yeah.
both.
All right. And let's do cake or pie.
Hmm. Both? This is
Both.
so bad.
Okay. Hey.
I like everything.
You
Like
like
this is like
everything? Okay. All right. Here's one. Is a hot dog a sandwich?
no, it's a hot dog, even though it
No.
might look like a
Okay,
sandwich
there
in
we go.
disguise.
All right. And here's one that might take you a moment to think about, but what has been your most favorite book of all time that you've read? And then what is the last book that you've read?
Okay, so I think my favorite book, and it changed because a couple years ago I read this and it kind of rocked my world. It's called The Woman Who Smashed Codes.
Ooh, okay.
And it is absolutely fascinating book based on recently declassified research over the last few years about a woman in the early 1900s who got started kind of breaking secret codes. And the work that she did on behalf of the United States government and the Allies from the First World War through the Second World War is absolutely fascinating. And it will change how you view things like we have been taught history.
Wow. Okay.
Absolutely fascinating. The
And if you'll
woman who
send me the
smashed
link,
codes,
uh-huh.
highly recommended.
So if you will send me the link to that, I'll make sure to include it in the description so no one has to Google it. It'll be in the description below. And what has
Sure.
been the most recent book you've read?
So it's called The Upside to Stress.
Okay.
So, we hear a lot about like people, they're being too stressed, they can't
Like
function.
burnout. Yep.
Yeah, like all that stuff. And so that book is by Kelly McGonigal, and it literally gets you to think about stress in a different way. And so there's a lot of research in the book, and it shows you like people that, if they get like an ailment, as an example, they said, oh my God, I'm going to die. They are actually going to die, or they're more likely to die
Kind of
than someone who gets
manifesting.
an ailment that says, I'm going to beat this and I'm going to do the best I can. They will live longer or they won't die, like because of that. Right. So there is this brain connection to your
Mhm.
physical health. So it's very interesting. And the people that let work stress them out and get stressed out about that to a level that it impacts their lives in other areas, again, negative, die earlier, all that kind of stuff. So that was kind of an interesting
Very
way to look at
mindset
it. And
focused book. Yeah.
yeah, and she helps kind of like walk through changing your mindset on that.
Wow. Well, we'll get those links. Ben will get me those links. They'll be in the description below for everyone out there. Ben, I know we're running out of time because I wish I could have you for hours and hours on end, but you're a very busy man. But what I'd like to do is, if you, there's a couple of things I like to talk about. You mentioned your career and your opportunities you had to kind of wear different hats in your career. But in your
Yeah.
career, I always like to give my guests an opportunity to maybe shine a light or pay homage to people that mentored you, mentored coach, or leaders you admired throughout your career. Is there anybody that you would like to shine a light on, whether they're with us anymore or not, that have been an impact on you in your career?
Well, I've been very fortunate to have a lot of amazing mentors in my life. But I would say Sandra Thornberry at Lockheed Martin Corporation was one of my earliest and most impactful throughout my career. She probably doesn't even know that at this point, but now she does.
All right, I like that. And then for yourself, I mean, obviously, Savvy Cyber Kids is a big nonprofit initiative in your life and great mission that you have taken on, and thank you for that. But is there other nonprofits, charities, volunteer work that you somehow, with your very demanding career and multiple things going on in your life, that you do make time for, or donate to, or just want to shine a light on that? Hey, these are other great nonprofits and things that
Yep.
that are near and dear to my heart, meaning your heart that you'd like to
Yep.
shine a light on?
Yeah. So actually, because I believe in partnership so much and trying to help as many people as possible, we actually have a partners page on the Savvy Cyber Kids website, and you'll see a lot of the nonprofit organizations that we also partner with, share resources, do work on behalf of, and that kind of thing. But one of them I'll give a shout out to is Sapria. Sapria is a nonprofit organization that helps those that have been victims of child sexual exploitation and helps them recover. And they have initiatives as well around online child sexual abuse as well. So I'm involved with them and the amazing work that they're doing to
Yes.
help educate.
Well, we'll include a link to them as well in the description below.
Sure.
Please check them out. And folks that are watching, again, there's so many opportunities that you can also contribute to make an impact in children's lives around the world. As Ben already showed on the website, if you want to contact, reach out to Ben and contribute an article to be on the site, or if you're a writer that wants to rhyme a little bit and help contribute for stories and translations. He's really looking to get this education and knowledge out to as many countries as possible. So if you speak Portuguese, if you speak Finnish, Mandarin, I'm sure Ben will welcome anyone that can help contribute to getting this out, this much needed education out for children of all ages, parents of all ages as well, and grandparents and so forth, because it's tremendous content. Ben, I know we're wrapping up, but I want to give you the floor for your final words, whether you want to talk about Savvy Cyber Kids or your work as a CISO or cybersecurity in general. Whatever you want to talk about, the final word is yours.
Much appreciated. So the biggest thing I can ask for is if you would like to volunteer with Savvy Cyber Kids and bring a book into the local school where you are. We'd love to have your help. Bring the book to the school, maybe read to the kids. But we can't change a generation alone. I can't do it alone. Savvy Cyber Kids can't do it alone. We need help. And so we'd love your help.
Wonderful. Well, Ben, thank you so much for your time. Again, I'm going to say it again. You're a tremendous human being. You and your team, your nonprofit is doing such phenomenal work. I hope you guys get tremendous amounts of success and exposure because every kid on the planet, you're right, from when they're born, every hospital should be putting one of these books into the bag that they're sending home with parents. And if you got an expected parent in your life and you're watching this right now, it's the perfect gift to give and start that family off with much needed information for the rest of that child's development. So again, Ben, thank you so much for being on the Top Cyber Pro podcast.
Thanks so much for having me.